Hello. How are you feeling right now? Hand on your heart. Check in. Because that is what today's video is all about. It's about our state of being, and checking in with ourselves to maintain a certain state of being and why that's important and how that can affect us. So, how often do you stop and check in to think, what physical, mental, spiritual, emotional state am I in right now? A lot of us go through our lives in this perpetually stressed state and maybe don't even realize it, or we're just in a distracted state, or we're frazzled, or we're really excited, or we're a little bit depressed, or whatever the case may be. Moods and fluctuations in feelings and emotions are totally normal and I think healthy. And it's incredibly powerful when we start to become more intentional about choosing to stay and working to stay in states that are good for us long term and that will help contribute to our overall happiness and success and satisfaction and fulfillment. I talk a lot about this in my online course called Show Up Sure's Secrets to Embody Confidence for a Lifetime, which is available on Udemy, because that course is all about building confidence. And it's so much easier to engage in certain behaviors when we're already in a physical and mental state that is conducive to that behavior. Now, this is something that Tony Robbins talks a lot about too. He says, you have to get in a physical state that feels a certain way before you take action. Or maybe you don't have to, you can take action from whatever state, but the way you do something when you're doing it from guilt or from lack or from stress or anxiety of oh my gosh, I'm so broke, I better apply for a job now, and you're frantically looking for jobs, that's a very different energy. That's a very different state from, I feel really excited and empowered and inspired to do this thing. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about today. And so if you haven't yet checked out the online course, it is called Show Up Sure, Secrets to Embody Confidence for a Lifetime, available on Udemy with a free or a full 30-day money-back guarantee. If you're looking for gifts for the holidays, I do have my poetry book for sale, as well as a whole little shop that you can check out with mugs and calendars and fun little things, products with poetry verses on them, original poetry verses written by yours truly. And you can find that at powerfulandpoised.com/shop. So, it is very easy as we go through our days and our lives to kind of check out from the body, and so very powerful and important to check in with our state. Now, when I say state, what I'm referring to is one, our physical state, and our emotional and mental, psychological state. So what mood are we in? What energy do we have at that moment? I thought of this because the other day I was having a conversation with my sister, and I was not really in the mood to talk on the phone. I had just sat down at my computer and I was about to work on a project. Fun fact, I'm about to publish my second book, so I was putting that together and I was very motivated to get it done. I was in a very focused zone, and she texted me and she's like, I'm driving if you want to chat, and I was like, okay, I should talk to her. And so I called her. It's not that I didn't want to talk to her. I just was mentally in a different space. And so the whole time I'm talking to her, I'm like, okay, I really want to get to my project. And I felt really guilty about that. And so I just wasn't in the best headspace to be talking to her. And then what ended up happening is we were having a fine conversation, and then I kept probing and asking her questions. I was like, are you sure you're okay? You seem like something's off, and asking all these questions even though I was distracted. And then we ended up it was not a good experience, and I ended up crying, and we talked about some deeper stuff, but not from the energy that I wanted it to come from. I shared some things with her about how I'd been feeling about stuff, and she shared some things with me, but it just wasn't the right time for that conversation to happen. Or maybe it was. I believe everything happens the way it's meant to. So maybe that was the perfect condition for it to happen in. But it just made me think about how differently that conversation could have gone had I been in a better feeling state and had I waited until I was in that state to have that conversation. Now, we can't always control what state we're in, or at least it feels like we can't control what state we're in. In that moment, what I could have done is, before calling my sister, taken a walk or even stood up. I sat in this chair at my computer the whole time we talked, which was not conducive to having a heart-to-heart conversation with her because I was not in that zone. I was in my work zone. So there were a lot of things I could have done to put myself in a different state. And the same is true when we're about to take action towards our dreams and goals. And I'm going to share ways to shift our state in a moment. But when we start to take action from a state of desperation or helplessness or frustration, usually it doesn't go as smoothly as when we act from a place of enthusiasm and inspiration and excitement. So I can think of many times where I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm not making enough money, and I'll frantically Google jobs. And I've spent so much time doing that and so much energy stressfully Googling jobs and looking at applications and never actually applying to anything. And I've spent so much time over the years doing that, and never once has it gotten me anything. Any opportunity that I've gotten has come from a much calmer state, when I acted from a more empowered state, or when an opportunity came to me and I enthusiastically said yes, as opposed to frantically searching for something. And I think this is super important, because if we're unconsciously acting from those negative states a lot of the time, then the results that we're hoping to achieve, we're not going to achieve. And then we're going to be frustrated and feel like, I'm taking all the action steps. Why is this not yielding what I want? Similarly, think about, for example, if you go to the gym or you exercise, but you're not taking care of your physical state. So you're not sleeping very well, you're not well nourished, and so you're going to the gym, but you're physically weak, and you're doing the exercises, but not taking care of your body after, and then wondering, why am I not building muscle, or why am I not getting fit the way that I want to? Why am I not feeling good? That comes down to the state that you have when you walk into the gym and when you start the workout. The state that we have when we're going to a party is probably going to be different from how we'll feel when we're zoning in on work. And so the more aware we can become of the state that we're in, and the more practices we have to put us in a positive state, or a state that's appropriate for that scenario, then the more control we'll have. Well, I don't even want to say control, but the more intentionality we'll have going into different experiences, and then the more likely we are to be able to set ourselves up for success. There's a podcaster named David Baer, who's also an author. I have not read his book, but I'm a big fan of his podcast. And he always talks about the fact that we exist in two different states. It's either we're in a state of stress, fight or flight, activated nervous system state, or a state of rest and digest, this more relaxed parasympathetic state. I think I got that right. I might have gotten that backwards, but it's a more relaxed state. And his whole thing is, if we stay in that more relaxed state, most of the time we'll be happier, we'll be healthier, we'll be more productive, we'll reach our goals and manifest our dreams a lot faster. And my addition is, we'll have a lot more joy. We'll feel a lot better. And so I wanted to just walk through a few different ideas for ways to optimize your state for different circumstances. And then I encourage you to also think about what you do that puts you in a good, high vibe, happy, motivated, inspired state. Because sometimes, especially as an artist, as a writer that I am, sometimes we wait for example, for inspiration to strike, or we wait to feel a certain way to take action. And there's actually a lot that we can do to change the state of our bodies so that inspiration is more likely to strike, or so that we get these good ideas not by forcing the idea itself, but by positioning ourselves in a way that allows the ideas to flow. And we're going to talk about those right now. I did a whole video about how to inspire and nurture creativity, by the way, which I will link here. That was one of my first videos, so I hope it's good. So then, how do you change your state if you want to? First step is become aware of your state most of the time. So get in the habit of checking in with yourself. How do I feel right now? But the other night I was having dinner with some friends, and one woman asked me specifically, she said, Trisha, what do you do that feels particularly healing? And I was not sure exactly what she was asking. So I was like, writing poetry is very healing, very cathartic for me. And then everyone went around and shared something they did that felt healing. And so I'm going to use some of those as potential actions that you can take to shift your state. So let me just start with the one that I shared. Writing. Any form of creative expression that will change your physical and mental state. When inspiration does strike, we'll talk about ways to encourage that, but when it just, if you're sitting around and like, boom, there's an idea, act on it, because you don't know when it'll come back. But for me, if I'm very frazzled or stressed or ruminating on something or sad, no matter what, if I start writing, even if it's just journaling about it, that will change my physiological state. If you're a painter, paint. If you like to cook, cooking is a great way. I love when I'm in my head, if you start cooking something, it helps get you out of your head, or especially if you like bake something and that's can be a little more methodical or a little more precise. You have to be a little more focused, and then you're creating something and all of that energy is now going into the creation process as opposed to the rumination, and that usually gets us out of that state. Another really powerful one of the women at the table shared, walking. If you're stumped about an idea, go take a walk. If you're frazzled, go take a walk. If you're sad, go take a walk. I feel like going on a walk solves so many things because it changes the body's physical state, and therefore it then changes our mental and emotional state. This is something I took a class with Gabby Bernstein, who's written a bajillion books, and she was like, when I can't think of a story to put in my book or I'm having writer's block, I take a walk. And you take a walk and the ideas flow. And ideally, this would be without distractions, so without a phone, without listening to a podcast or listening to something. But I often will take a walk listening to a podcast or listening to music, and that will also give me, it'll put me in a different state. I might not get the creative inspiration the same way as if I'm walking in silence, being one with nature, but don't let anything stop you. So don't think like, oh, I'll be bored on a walk. Like if you need a podcast, go for it. I think there's a lot of benefit to being bored too, but I get it. Sometimes I want to multitask and be listening to something while I walk or talk to a friend, but the physical act of walking and getting outside is so powerful. That said, another woman shared that working out was her go-to healing experience. That puts her in the best state. That gets her motivated. That puts her, it releases endorphins. It feels good. I am particularly a fan of dancing. Go dance. If you want to put yourself in a higher vibe state, turn on some music. Listen to music. You don't even have to dance if you don't want to. Listening to music, moving your body, that can change your state in an instant. So think, for example, about times in the day where you're working and you get stumped or you get bored. Imagine taking a break, turning on a Beyonce song and just dancing, and then go back to work. You're going to feel so much better. And it's these little things that make such a big difference that we forget about them because they're so small. But it is so powerful when we actually stop to become aware of, okay, what state am I in right now? if we're frazzled or checked out or bored or frustrated or just distracted and lost in our phone, and then we do something that gets us out of our head and into our body, that can change our whole state, and then we'll return with a lot more momentum, I think, or the ability to build the momentum. One other woman shared celery juice. She was like, drinking celery juice just puts me in this magical state. She was like, I feel like every cell in my being is just turning into light when I drink celery juice. And I get it. There was one summer when I drank celery juice every morning. And the only reason I stopped is because it is a pain to clean the juicer and to buy that much celery. I only did it for the few months that my brother was living with me because he did it all. He like juiced the celery and he cleaned the juicer, and all I had to do was buy it and drink it, and it was amazing. So your food, your nourishment, that changes our state as well. And the more aware we become of our state, the more we may start to notice that, oh wow, when I eat a lot of sugar, I'm in a crankier state afterwards. Like I might feel good for a little bit and then I crash. Or for me, I know when I need a pick-me-up. Chocolate never fails. And I'm not suggesting to go be a chocoholic like me. I'm very dependent on chocolate, but I love it. And I am unapologetic. I don't eat chocolate with a lot of sugar. I make my own chocolate. It has 0 sugar. But that cacao, that feeling is just so good for me in a lot of ways. I like to think it's good for me. But maybe drink tea or something like that. But do something that changes your state. Think about if you drink coffee. That changes your state, right? And whether or not it's good or bad for us is up to us to decide, and becoming intentional about, okay, when I do this thing, it puts me in this state. That's a good time to do XYZ. I like to eat chocolate, for example, when I'm about to do some creative work, because it gets me in this really excited, happy place, not like a jittery, excited, over caffeinated place, but just like, oh, I have energy, I have ideas, I feel good, and then I can do a lot of writing, or I'll go to the gym, or I'll do something active. I wouldn't eat a lot of chocolate to then meditate, because that wouldn't make sense. So when we become very aware of our actions and how that influences our behaviors, then we have the ability to be more intentional with our behaviors as well, as opposed to waiting for the feeling to come. Now, earlier in the video, I mentioned that we often wait to feel like doing something before taking action. That's something that I heard is characteristic of feminine energy. So we all have within us feminine energy and masculine energy. The masculine is, I do something, I take action to change my feeling. The feminine is I wait for the feeling to take action. So there's both here. I think it's both and. If you're a person who, like me, would rather wait for the feeling to come before taking action, we can also learn to induce that feeling by changing our state, by doing these behaviors and activities that bring us joy and light us up. So for example, if I don't feel like answering emails or doing something that I know is quote unquote productive, then now I know, oh, let me put myself in a different state so that I'm happy and I'm motivated, and then answering the emails doesn't feel so bad. And so I think there is an argument to be made for powering through things, but I just think that's just not fun. And I don't like to do it. So why not make your life better? I would rather dance for 2 minutes and then do the thing than force myself to do something I don't want to. I'm just saying. And then a few others. So my friend, another woman at the table, said for her it's gardening. Like being out in nature, touching dirt really changes her state. Grounding, being outside in general, playing an instrument, goes back to the creativity piece. But really, doing anything that you enjoy, I think, will change your state. Having a conversation with someone who lights you up. Watching a YouTube video. Oh, which brings up a really good point. My last video was a gratitude rampage. Meditating or just listening to positive affirmation, that changes our state so quickly. I remember the day that I did that video, that I recorded it, I was like in the best mood the rest of the day. Because how do you be in a bad mood when you've just spent 15 minutes saying, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that, I'm grateful for everything, life is beautiful. It was so awesome. And I've been trying to listen regularly to a recording of myself doing that because it just puts us in a good mood. Well, it puts me in a good mood. And so if you're stuck and you're in a funk and you're like, it would be nice, Trisha, to go take a walk, but I work in an office where I can't just get away from my desk. That's harder because you don't have as much control of your physical space and your physical environment. But listening to something, listen to music, or listen to a gratitude rampage, or write out, I'm so grateful for this, I'm so grateful for that, I'm so grateful for da 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 da. You can do all these things in silence without anyone noticing. And the really cool thing is it doesn't have to take a long time. It can be like 2 minutes of saying what you're grateful for, and that can change your state. Putting your hand on your heart and breathing into your heart center can change your state. Changing your clothes really changes your state. You know how when COVID started and everyone was working from home, they were like, dress up for work. Don't just wear your pajamas. I don't wear my pajamas, but I hardly, unless I have a Zoom call or I'm recording something, I dress like a bum in my house. And even when I'm on Zoom, even right now, I'm wearing shorts that are very casual. I'm not wearing jeans. I'm not wearing stiff clothes. I like soft clothes. And at the same time, even though I like that and it's comfortable and I do it often, when I get dressed up a little bit more, or I wash my hair, or I do my makeup or whatever, I feel in a different state. And it's more motivating to record videos because I'm ready for it. And so it's like, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Is it I'm going to record videos, so I need to dress up, or I happen to be dressed up, now I'm in the mood to record videos? And I think both work. There are plenty of days, as you all know if you follow my channel, where I say, I wasn't planning to record this, but I had the inspiration, and likely I was in the mood to do it because I was ready. There have been plenty of times when I've been not dressed to record and I have an idea and I think, oh man, that would make a great video. Too bad I don't have any makeup on, or too bad I'm in my pajamas. So then I just never record it, or I save it for another day. But yeah, so I think we don't need to wait for the state. We can choose to put ourselves and do things and change our environment, change our physical circumstances to put ourselves in a state that is more conducive to doing the behavior that we want to get done. I hope some of that made sense. Thank you for watching. I hope this put you in a good state. I hope watching my videos puts you in a good state. That is one of my goals and aspirations for having this channel, because I think if everyone just focused on their internal state and happiness and peace and joy and enthusiasm and passion for life, we'd be hard pressed to have problems, wouldn't we? I know that's wishful thinking, but just imagine if every single person in the world focused on feeling good personally once they have their basic needs met. Obviously, I'm not talking about if you don't have food or shelter or water or things like that. But if you have your basic needs met and we focus on keeping ourselves in a positive state, which is also induced by taking action towards our goals. So doing things that are fulfilling puts us in a good state. Giving gifts. Oh my gosh, giving gifts puts me in the best state. I just love it. And writing cards. There's so many things. Oh my gosh, I could go on for days. I'm going to stop because I think I'm getting to rambly town now. But my encouragement for you is think about what it is that quickly shifts your state so that when you're in a mood or you're in a funk, you can easily go back to that. I actually used to have a list on my desk of things I could do when I was having a hard time focusing or I didn't know what to work on. So write out a list of things you like to do that will shift your energy, shift your state, so that you can do that for a minute or 20 minutes or an hour or however long you want, but do it to shift your state so that then you can come back and take action on the things that you are wanting to take action on that will help you feel a certain way even more. And leave a comment below to let me know what that is for you. I'm sure there are a bajillion that I didn't mention. So please let me know. And if I mention one that resonates with you, please share that as well. And thank you, as always, for watching. Again, I go deeper into this in my course, Show Up Shores, Secrets to Embody Confidence for a Lifetime, which is a self-paced video course all about improving self-confidence and reducing social anxiety. Most of the feedback I've gotten is that it's been empowering for people and given them practical tools and strategies to talk to strangers and to public speak and to speak up in meetings and to be more social with friends and to communicate better and to feel more like themselves. So if you want any of those things, I encourage you to check it out, risk-free. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee. Thank you again. Please subscribe if you haven't yet, and go get yourself in a good state.